Welcome to the podcast. I'm like just so honored to have you guys here, only because I feel like people know of Fashion Revolution South Africa, but they don't know um, the faces of the people. They don't know what's been happening, the changes that has happened in the last couple of months. But I think that people always want to participate in the sustainability space, particularly in fashion, but they don't know where to start. And I'm saying people, and it sounds like I'm generalizing, but some people still don't know that you guys actually exist, you know?
Yeah.
So what would you say about that? I'll give Sophia and Leander a chance. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Anyone can start.
Yeah, as a volunteer-led organization, there's obviously always limits to how far your reach can go.
Mm.
We've been really lucky in terms of having a local representation since pretty much the inception of Fashion Revolution internationally, but it's always been on a very small scale because everyone is giving their time and energy as volunteers. Whereas the big change for us in the last year has been that we've been able to establish ourselves as a nonprofit organization, which means that we can really start scaling up our operations and reaching more people.
Mm.
Um, that's sort of operationally, but what I've seen that's been really interesting, having been involved for a very long time, is that the conversations that we're starting to have with people when we're out in the world has shifted. 8 years ago, if we did an activation in a public space, no one really knew that there were still such ingrained issues within the fashion supply chain.
Mm.
Whereas now, when I meet specifically with younger generations, there's a general understanding that we need to do better and that we need to do things in a different way, which has shifted fundamentally how much we can do as an activism group. People are already on board, they're very keen, they're seeking community, and that's really a role that we can play as a sort of hub for everyone that's interested, whether that's within industry or within the sort of civil action space. Everyone who wears clothes can participate in some way or another.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for that. Sophia?
Yeah, thanks, Leandra. I think, yeah, what she said is also what I've experienced. And I think one of the most exciting things about us now being registered as a nonprofit organization is that we're also are able to, yeah, like Leandra said, scale up our work. And so what I think has happened in the past few years is that a lot of people kind of drifted out of the space. And so you actually had a much smaller team. I think at some point it was just, I think, one or two people. And with COVID and everything else, I think that really kind of slowed down like the type of work we could do and conversations we were having. And I think that's potentially why Fashion Revolution South Africa kind of maybe didn't get forgotten about, but has maybe lost some of that presence and awareness. But I think now we're seeing a little bit more traction, and we're quite excited with the campaign in April and how that's also going to hopefully spread the movement further. And the goal is that with a more formalized organization, we can also hopefully have more teams and more volunteers, and then that can be spread out. Because I think at the moment, primarily a lot of work is happening in Cape Town, but that's not to say that these conversations are just happening in Cape Town. Like it's all over the country, and like Johannesburg, Durban, and all the other like major cities. People are thinking about sustainable fashion and things that they can do differently, and so we're just hoping as well to support those conversations and have a bigger presence. So it's an exciting time ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds so exciting, especially now that, you can fully take charge of, I guess, the mandate in a way. I guess before you guys registered, it just felt like it was half in, half out. But I think now it's actually really exciting time. So who is Fashion Revolution for? Anyone can take it. Sophia, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Leandra touched on it, right? We all wear clothes, and so we're all kind of participate within the fashion industry, whether we actively are aware of it or not. And so I think Fashion Revolution really is for everybody. And I think that's why also the campaign this year is really focused on what does it mean to be a fashion revolutionary, like how to be a fashion revolutionary, what does activism look like, and defining it going forward. And I think for us, it's very much about community and anyone who is conscious of like their impact in the world. I think Fashion Revolution is for them. We don't really have any limitations. You don't need to have any pre-existing skills or knowledge, or you don't even have to be within the fashion industry formally or anything like that. So I mean, when I joined Fashion Revolution, I was working in finance. So it really is for anyone who's just really interested in getting involved and like, challenging how they consume fashion. And I think, I don't know if Leandra also has other thoughts on
Leandra, your thoughts?
that.
Yeah, I really think that, the two pillars that we are particularly interested in are education and advocacy. And within that, what we can provide as a resource to anyone, whether that is a high school learner in Welkom or a registered company that's on the JSE, is that we have a lot of skills and knowledge to share in order to reconsider what your position is as someone or as an organization that is involved within trying to think about different ways that the fashion system can exist, that is both thoughtful to the planet and to the people that not only work in the industry, but as consumers who purchase fashion outputs. I really like the idea of being able to work between spaces that are both big and small, right? So whether that is helping somebody figure out how to host a clothes swap in their living room, or whether it is a 3-month-long campaign or a 5-year-long research process study, that we can kind of facilitate and support people within any of those spaces. So it really is for everyone. We just hope that we can be a sort of central point of contact to bring people together in terms of this network, in terms of building community and really having meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and I think I asked that question because I think sometimes people want to get involved but they feel like they are not the perfect candidate, or you need to have, all these silver things and, the frills that I guess we always assume that one has to carry to participate in the space. So I think it's comforting to know, particularly for Fashion Revolution Week, for people to understand that as long as you're a fashion lover, as long as you wake up every morning and wear clothes, perhaps it's time that you think about how you wear the clothes and how you function within, that space with your clothing, where you shop, and how you also get rid of the clothing when you don't use them. But also, I think someone might think that, but is a movement like Fashion Revolution relevant for Africa? Is it something that we need? Because if we carry that whole idea that, Africa has always been sustainable, like we don't need all these things, we know how to, I guess, go grab water from the tap somewhere with a bucket. Like we know how to be on the ground and then all the way up in terms of the fanciness of life. What would you say to that, Leandra?
Yeah, we have a very lucky position in terms of having a local team. So because we're part of an international organization, but we have a local office, we can really take that messaging and think about how to make it more relevant to our audience and to focus it and make it really introspective. We spend a lot of time thinking about what it is that the South African market or population would really need, or filtering through some of the messaging that is part of the global conversation around sustainability at large, and really questioning how much of that is really meaningful for us. Like if I think about all of the conversations around fast fashion consumption, I can't within good stead morally say that it is wrong for someone in a South African context to be spending money at a fast fashion retailer knowing what the local average income in a household is. The reality is that I can give that same household guidance on how to take care of those fast fashion garments in order to extend their lifespan. And there shouldn't have to be a guilt conversation about don't shop at this place, that place, because it's bad. Please spend money at local boutiques that
Yeah.
we know is inaccessible to the majority of our population. So it really is thinking about our local context and making sure that it is inclusive across the entirety of our population. We're not just speaking to the 1% that do have the option to choose where they spend their money. And I think that that is a really important conversation to start unpacking. And this sort of relates to the previous question in terms of who can participate, right?
Yeah.
Like we speak about consumers a lot. I've caught myself doing it now, even in this conversation. But we've forgotten that as people, we're actually citizens. And an action as small as choosing to buy something from any retailer that is made of fabric that you know you can take care of and wash and dry and mend in order to make it more useful, purposeful in your life and keep it going for as long as possible. That is revolutionary. Recognizing that how you spend 50 Rand or 5,000 Rand on something that's going to live in your life and take up space in your wardrobe could seem really small, but it's actually a really big deal. And that is why we really want to place ourselves within our local context and start having those conversations, because our kind of geopolitical context has a huge influence on what this conversation looks like.
Yeah. And Safiya, so what are some of the themes that you'll be doing this year in terms of activation?
Yeah, so I think we are just really trying to focus more on the community aspect and just trying to empower people with like skills and knowledge around the space. So it's not meant to be inaccessible in any way. And we've been working very hard to make everything accessible. Like we have a lot of free events so that there's no like real obstacles or hurdles for people to attend, because we want more people to be a part of these conversations. So we've got a variety of events taking place during Fashion Revolution Week. So from the 15th of April until the 24th. And we've got a film screening taking place on the Wednesday night. It's going to be at Berta House. It's the Fashion Reimagined documentary. It's quite a recent documentary as well. So it's a lot more relevant compared to some of the other ones that have been produced maybe 10 years ago. And then we've got a fashion show taking place on Friday night. That's going to be in Muizenberg, and it's quite cool because it's going to be a collection of local like streetwear brands, and it's going to be like a street fashion show as well. And there's a DJ, and it's also a free event for people to connect and engage with local brands. And then on the Saturday we have our Mend in Public Day, and what's great about this is that it's a global activation. So this is taking place in countries all over the world, countries and cities all over the world. And the idea is to really challenge fast fashion. And it's like what Leandra touched on is that, you know, fast fashion really encourages you to, it tries to get you to buy more things and throw away things and not really take care of your clothes. And so we're trying to challenge that on the 20th of April, getting everyone to come together to mend their clothes and have conversations around how to look after their clothes and restoring that relationship with fashion and making our clothes last longer. But we also want it to be a space to connect and learn new skills. So it's going to be, yeah, what we hope to be a really community-led event. So even though we're hosting one in Greenpoint Park here in Cape Town, and there's going to be some mending taking place in Johannesburg as well with the Twig 44 Stanley collaboration, we really want to encourage everyone to also host their own events if they'd like to, because, you know, maybe they can't attend the one in Greenpoint Park, or they're in another city where we don't have like volunteers. So it's really just for everyone to take that stance that day day and be a part of a global activation. So that's taking place on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday we have a clothing swap that's going to be at the Design Academy of Fashion at the Biscuit Mill.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only event where we have an entrance fee of 50 Rand, but everything else is free for everyone to attend and just meet other people and learn new skills and learn what we're about as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the sound of that. And also even going back to Leandra's answer on the previous questions about you know, how relevant is it and who is it for? So I like the idea. It sounds like community is at the forefront, but not only community. Leandra was saying, you know, consumers, but she's like, no, actually it's not even consumers, it's citizens. And I think that's what we've forgotten, you know, sometimes is that as citizens, we have a responsibility to regulate what works for us and what doesn't necessarily work for us. And it sounds like the events that are organized this year, the essence of it is more about community. Even when you say like the fashion show on some street style brands, like that's where like the community is. They love things like that and participating, rather than making it so high end or high level that people are feeling exactly what we spoke about earlier on, like it's not for me, you know. And I think sometimes it's in how we do things that we forget that we're sending a message to make people